Good afternoon, our honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining our lecture today. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our speaker, Professor Michael Krohn today. And then he is the Professor of Design and also co-head of Sustainability in Art in Zurich University. And then he will give us a lecture about sustainable design and circulation design today. Yeah, let's give a big round of applause to him. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a great honor to be here again after the pandemic. We will look back on a long-term relation between Zurich University of the Arts and Hong Kong Design Institute. It started around like 2014. We did here workshops, we had an exhibition, we did further education. So that's let's say a long relation, which is very valuable for us, and I hope valuable for you as well. And it's really nice to be here again after 2018, after the pandemic, and see that you are alive still, and that you're honoring us, that we are coming to you. And yeah, probably it's the proceeding of what we started some years ago. And yeah, this is a series of master lectures, starting with this one. Actually, we started already this morning with the teachers training workshop, which was quite interesting for us. And tomorrow we will have workshops with students, and my dear colleagues Karin and Isabella will also have master lectures. So yeah, you are invited to join that as well. And yeah, since we three are flying over from Zurich, which is not so sustainable actually, but we thought in balance of what we are teaching here, it makes sense. We are doing workshops about sustainability, about yeah, the question of how this planet can survive in the future, especially for the new generation of designers which are educated here. We have a series of master lectures which are touching sustainability in very different aspects. And I'm starting today with this lecture towards sustainable and circular design. So this is a little bit of overarching view about sustainability and circular design, not going that deep. That we do later tomorrow and Friday. But it should give you some sort of overview, at least how we are thinking about the relation of design and sustainability, let's say in Europe, particularly in Switzerland, and how we see the responsibility of the young generation of designers, and especially of the design institutions which are educating these students, which we see these responsibilities, chances, options, but probably also problems we are facing in the next decade. So this is a little bit the frame of our visit here. We will be honored that you visit probably the next master lectures, and being here as guest of HKDI, as we are also guest of HKDI. So let's start. This is the topic this afternoon, towards sustainable and circular design. You can read a lot, endless publications about sustainability from the nature science, from the social sciences, but our view must be the view of a designer. So what can we as designers contribute to a more sustainable world? And at least we in Europe, we say transformation. We have transformed the economy, we have transformed the society, we have also transformed the science to go more sustainable. And we are asking always, what is our point of view as designers to this transformation? So that's a little bit framework. So, but just briefly to me, my background is industrial design. So actually, before I was studying industrial design, I was had an engineering, not a study, but an apprenticeship as a draftsman. So I'm really very attached to production processes. Then I was head of industrial design program at Zurich University of the Arts. Then together with Karin for 10 years of Master of Arts in Design, where we were also here with our students in Hong Kong. And since 2020, we have this resource sustainability in the arts, which is overarching all study programs of Zurich University of the Arts. And what we try is to ask ourselves, how can we embed sustainability in the education programs, but also in research, in further education. So what touches the programs when it comes to sustainability. Despite that, I have a small agency which is doing design, and so I have always been in practice. So that's a little bit what we do in our agency. So everyday products, but mainly this is our university in the heart of Zurich industrial area, the Tony Areal. Mrs. Ong had the pleasure to be there, Michael as well. So it's not the same as here. It's a former industrial building, and there we educating around 2,000 students in different programs of art and design. So, but let's go into the topic. So probably this is a bit strange when I say we should ask ourselves, what is sustainability? So sustainability is everywhere in the newspaper. We should sustainable. We should transform our economy. Yes, but why? So often people tell we should do that, but nobody asks why we should do that. And furthermore, what are the roles of design in this transformation? That's particularly our point of view when it comes to sustainability. I see a lot of designers who says, "Oh, okay, I'm sustainable," but they don't know why should they be sustainable and what is the framework of sustainability. And so this is a little bit about that. So when we come to sustainability, I think it's crucial to know the definition of sustainability as it was outpointed by the United Nations. Sustainability consists of fulfilling the needs of current generation, we, without compromising the next future generation, students probably, or children of students, ensuring a balance between economic growth, environmental care, and social well-being. So that's the first point. Sustainability is not only ecology. So even in our institution, a lot of students understand sustainability is the same as ecology, green, but that's not the case. Social well-being is also part of sustainability. Even economic growth is part of the sustainability. So how can our economy grow by being sustainable? And that's not the only, or that's not the full definition. There is even more, but mainly this is where it comes from. So that means we should care that the next generation can also grow as we have grown in our times. And grown means something different than we have experienced. So in my generation, we are the throwaway generation. We bought things and we throw it away. We think that's normal, but it's not normal. And I think our task is to learn that our student what is sustainable behavior. When it comes to that, let's start by the basics. We live on a planet, and interestingly, we live all on the same planet. So Asia is not living on a different planet. So what you are doing here in Asia is also influencing us in Europe and vice versa. So we have just one planet. I just read a sentence that God says, please hand those over the planet as you received it million years before, you know? And we are far away from that. So this planet is different than millions years before. So we have our resources, soil, water, air. This we need. Without this, we simply die. No water, no air, no food to grow. But what we did as humans, we not changed that, but we used these resources. Heavy agriculture, so we planting food by industrial processes. Mobility, so we drive around, we fly around, we use ships, etc. And housing, we live somewhere. So that's, that's Hong Kong, obviously. So that's how we use the resources. and the resources on the Earth are not endless. So they are ending. Some earlier, some probably later, but we use these resources to make all these things out of it. So now I show you some figures. And this morning it was in my group, it was very interesting that we said, how can learn designers about the basics of sustainability? And if you like it or not, it has to do simply with physics, simply with nature sciences. And I think students should understand that. Understand probably that the consumption of material we use from that planet. So let's start here, 1970, that's even later, and when I was born, used around 30 billion of tons of material to do everything, you know, to produce cars, to grow, to build houses, etc. That's what we take out of the earth, resources. Here we have the use of metal, of energy, coal, gas, oil, so to produce energy. Non-metallic resources like plastic, like stuff which is not metallic. And this is biomass, plants, animals, etc., what we grow. And you see, I mean, it's obvious that it's growing. And why is it growing? Simply because the population is also growing. So we feed more people than 1970. They want to have a car, they want to have their own building, they want to eat something special, etc., etc. And this leads to this tremendous, I mean, that's like 40 years or a bit more, this tremendous use of resources of this planet. I mean, actually, we know that. But what is now very interesting is this. If you look the consumption per person, and here we see a completely imbalance. The world average is using 11 tons of material per year. That's the average person on this planet. While the Western lifestyle, and I count Hong Kong to the Western lifestyle, we have cars, we have buildings, etc., uses 4 times more. So that's an imbalance. And this imbalance leads to social imbalance. So people who are, let's say, not participating in this Western lifestyle have like roughly 4 times less than we have. So we use of these whole material much more than another person. And this leads to social conflict. And this is why sustainability is not only ecology, it's also social science. So if we use more than the others, they are not okay with that, because they say you take more resources of this planet just for your lifestyle, and we have to suffer because we are poor or have not the economic power or not the political power. Let's go a little bit deeper. What me really concerns are these figures. You can take what you want. I indicated here 1950. That's like 70 years ago, so not that long. So we have here, starts 1750 and goes today. And you can take what you want. Transportation. You see here, that's the use of transportation in million motor vehicles. You can use the GDP, what we are producing. So everything goes up after 1950. So that means it's not a balanced growth, it's a very unbalanced growth. So that means, let's say after 1950s, we are taking much more than before. So the growth is not equal, it's a steady, it's a very fast growth, which is really taking the resources much more as we can grow for the next generation. And yeah, you can take what you want. It shows that we are really taking much more material out of this planet than it has for the next generation. This is also concerning, and this comes again to social balance and social responsibility. So that's the climate justice. I don't know if this term is known to you, climate justice. It says simply, we as with our Western lifestyle, we pollute the climate much more, and we do not suffer. Who is suffering? People who live in the global south. It gets warmer and warmer. The air gets dirty, and look at that. We here, we call, I don't know if you call yourself super rich, but at least we are here between those. We contribute, the richest 1% uses 15% of the, or produces 15% of the pollution. The middle richest, 50%, contributes 52% of pollution. And the poorest, the rest, 50%, only produces 84% to climate change. So that means those have to change their lifestyle, not the poorest one. And that's the social, let's say, the social imbalance which we are facing. And what is the result of that? Of all these tremendous changes of our environment? Climate change, pollution of the environment, loss of biodiversity. So in Switzerland, we see dying out insects, dying out species, but we get new species which are attached to the warmer climate, which is really tremendous because these species don't belong in our biodiversity environment. They are not used to that. So it completely changes the whole biodiversity. We have less access to clean and vital resources, means water, air, earth. Then the unequal distribution of wealth and unfair trade. So today, this morning, we talked about that you can buy for like 20 Hong Kong dollar a t-shirt. So who produces t-shirt and where, and then under what circumstances? Destruction of livelihoods. So because we need a lot of resources, we start to destruct, probably not here, but probably in the global south, livelihoods. And this leads to migration. So people go there where the life is better, social conflicts and human displacement. And this finally ends simply in war. You see this all around the world. People are not happy with their life conditions. What do? They start a war against their government, against the other party, against the other ethnia. You can take what you want. Often it starts simply with the resources, lack of resources or bad resources. And this is the reason why the United Nations said, like nearly 15 years ago, we should set up so-called goals for sustainable development, the so-called SDGs. We have 17 SDGs. Here they are all. Not every society is concerned by all 17 sustainable goals. For some are more important than others. But I highly recommend that you read what it's underlying these 17 sustainability goals. This can be, and this was also in discussion this morning with your lecturers, that we say this could be guidelines to educate the students. So how do I get to decent and economic growth? How do I produce affordable clean energy? And I don't mean as an engineer, I mean as a designer and an artist. So how can I contribute to a better sustainable environment, life on land, life below water, sustainable cities and communities, etc. So every sustainable goal is in very detail described in these social goals. And it's interesting when students start to work with that and to see this also as a guideline. But I always say as a professor, to understand to understand the future, you have to know the tradition and the history. So let's start in the history of sustainability. Some of our students think sustainability fall from heaven last year. No, everybody talks about sustainability. Last year it started. That's completely not true. It started actually with the Anthropocene. What is Anthropocene? Mankind takes command over this planet. We starting to influence Earth systems, and with that, we took responsibility. If you have a planet without humans, it corrects itself. But humans are more intelligent, are stronger, can build houses, can build machines, and they started to, we would say, to redesign the world. So actually, here started sustainability, not 1 year before. Here, actually, when humans started to make fire, to hunt species, to grow vegetables, whatever. And this is like millions before. But actually, that's the start of sustainability. But turn the wheel a little bit forward and go into the more modern times. It's interesting where the term sustainability came from. And actually, it was a German forestry man in the 18th century. His name was Hans Karl von Carlowitz. He lived like in the 18th century. And he had a simple rule, but to that point, it was not known to the society. Don't harvest more trees than you can grow. It's very simple. But this was the first statement that somebody says, we should take care of the future, because that's very simple. If you don't take out more trees than you can grow, then it declines. You have less trees. At the end, you have no trees at all. So he stated it was the first statement of sustainability in general. And go a little bit forward. Who knows Victor Papanek here? Nobody? Okay, you should read that. That's very interesting because he was one of the first who addressed design as a problem maker of sustainability. He said, that's a very famous quote of Victor Papanek, advertising design in persuading people to buy things they don't need with money they don't have in order to impress others who don't care is probably the phoniest field in existence today. So do we do that here? Do we do things? People have to make depth in buying things to impress others which don't care. I mean, that's a very negative description of design. But actually, he saw that. This is the end of the product then, the landfills. And he wrote a book in the 70s, Victor Papanek. It was just a marvelous exhibition in Germany about Victor Papanek. He was also an educator. And he wrote a book, Design for the Real World. He said, designers do not live in the real world. They live in a, let's say, artificial world. But we should take care about the real world. And he wrote the book, Design for the Real World, Human Ecology and Social Change. He said we should look at the real problems, not at the artificial problems. Who has the best sneaker here in the room? The real problem are people with their needs in ecology and in sociology. So that's something, a turn also in the design education, that somebody for the first time said, look at the real world. Look not at your shining glamour design world. Personally, I always appreciate Dieter Rams. Dieter Rams said in the 60s, and I think Dieter Rams didn't mean explicitly sustainability, but he said as little design as possible. And this is probably, he knew Victor Papanek, I don't know, and he stated like the 10 good design rules. when design is really good. And I marked here those who are directly addressing sustainability. I don't think Dieter Rams knew about sustainability, but he said, good design is unobtrusive, good design is durable, good design is environmental friendly. This was already in the 60s, and as we all know, this book, Less but Better, means make less design but better design. So go away from this consumerism society, make things that last, that people understand, that are simple to use, etc., etc. And Dieter Rams was for sure somebody who could be seen as a, yes, as a picture of how design, if you look at the real design, could have yeah, some sort of picture of how sustainable design could also look like. Then we have another guy, also a German guy, Joseph Beuys. I think most of you know Joseph Beuys. But what is not known is that Joseph Beuys was a founder of the Green Party in Germany. He was one of the three founders of the Green Party. He was very into ecology, and he did a wonderful project in the Documenta 7 in Kassel, 1982. This was the project 7,000 Oaks. So he planted as an art project, not as an ecological project. He saw this always as art. He planted 7,000 oaks in the city of Kassel. This is today. So that means these 7,000 oaks are still here today, and they completely changed the city. For him, it was an art project. It was not an ecological project. But the result is that the living quality in these surroundings are far better than in other cities. And this is always my explanation why art and design must contribute to a sustainable society and to a more environmental friendly society. And this is German. Eine Idee schlägt Wurzeln. This means an idea makes roots. This was the poster advertisement for the Documenta in Kassel. So he said, we plan 7,000 oaks in the city. And this is a good example how we can have impact as designers. But the real turning point for the economy and the politicians were these two books. They were issued in the 70s and in the 80s. And here, really, the designers became aware that they are part of the problem. The first book is the Club of Rome, The Limits of Growth. For the first time, the Club of Rome said, we cannot endless grow because the resources are limited. And this leads to a limit of growth. So they said there is a limit of growth. And like more than 10 years after, the Brundtland report says, what could be our common future? Because they recognize we're living on one planet, we have only one common future. We cannot divide the globe into two parts, the good and the bad part, because we are living all on the same globe. The World Commission for Environment and Development said, our common future, how can this future be if we want to survive the next 100 years? And this influenced designers. And two of these were Michael Braungart, and he thought about how can we alter the stream of resources and the stream of material we take out of this planet? And he came out with this cradle-to-cradle system. First, they said it was cradle to grave. That means we do things and we throw it away. This is this throwaway society. But they said there is a systematic approach. It's not about a simple product or a house. It's about a system. How can we build system that have a biological circle? That means it goes back to nature and has a technical cycle, goes back to production. So they said we should divide this in two parts, the biological cycle and the technical cycle. And what we saw yesterday on our tour with this collecting garbage is exactly this. We separate garbage in a technical part and then a biological part. The biological part goes back to nature. It makes biogas, it makes fertilizer, etc., etc. And the technical part goes back to industry. And this cradle-to-cradle principle was also then in a book by Michael Braungart and William McDonough in the late 90s. But actually, it led to this to the concept of circularity. So while they had two different cycles, circularity is one cycle. And circularity was not invented by one person, it was a steady development. How can we make just one cycle where all kind of materials, all kind of resources are part of it? And this is, let's say, a holistic model. I did a little bit of research, and the earliest definition of circular system was by Stahl and Reddy in the 1980s, and they already defined that utilization, manufacturing, resources should go in one cycle. And this leads then to this system, which you probably all know, the circular economy. And yes, raw materials we take out of the earth, or we grow, or we harvest. And then that's interesting, that the design is a part of the circular economy. You do something out of it. Designers design something, clothes, cars, computers, whatever it might be. Also engineers, for example, are part of that. Then we produce that, we process that, we distribute that, we use it, reuse it, we repair it, we collect it. We saw it yesterday. And probably we recycle it, and the rest goes to remains. That's the circle. Probably you know this circle. But now it comes a very interesting part, especially for us as designers. Oh, sorry. That design is either part of the problem or the solution, because we are at the beginning. You saw, we are at the beginning. So what we propose leads the whole chain at the end. So if we say, best example is the iPhone, you know, as Jobs defined the iPhone, he said, this is the iPhone, and after 5 years, the rest of the world had iPhones. So it was actually a design innovation, not an engineering innovation. That as well, but it was proposed by design. So the question is design part of the problem, or is design part of the solution? And that's a quote. I read it. We want everything, but we need nothing. That's a good picture on that. So this lady who has already a fancy dress and sees in the shopping window another fancy hat, but she already has one. And now it's a question, does she need another hat or not? And if you look at that closer, we come for sure to the transformation from arts and crafts to industrialization. Because if you like to produce not one good, if you like to produce many goods, a number of items, you have to go from arts and crafts to industrialization. And these are the qualities here. So the artist or the craftsman, he or she produces one piece, and every piece is unique because it's done by hand. This is what was before industrialization. And then industrialization came, and all are the same. So many people produce many things. The result is a massive increase of production in terms of number, low prices, and availability for everybody, reliable quality, and nice looking. So that's like in a shortcut, the result of industrialization, and we for sure live in the age of industrialization. Or even better, what is the expression of the industrialized society? Affordable quality for everybody, a wide choice of good, wide availability. So if I go here in a shopping mall of Hong Kong, I see thousands of dresses, of computers, of everything, but actually I need just one. But I have a big choice of goods. All are good looking and appealing. So that's why we are part of that. That's why we as designers are designing all this stuff. And but the real aim of the industrialization was quoted by Edgar Hoover, the former president of the United States. He said 1950, a long time ago, a chicken in every pot and a car in every garage. So that was the aim of the American societies in the 50s. Go away from scarcity to a good living society. So that was how it looked like. But then came this story of scaling up, because this was available for everybody. Design for individualism, prosperity, and social rights influenced our society, our culture, and the economical behavior. So these are goods from the 50s and 60s, coffee machines, TV sets, the nice Vespa. I mean, looking from the perspective of design, these are all very, very nice. But at the far end, these are consumer goods. A lot of people bought these just as representative item to show that they have a TV, they have a car, they have a microwave, etc., etc. And where ended this? Actually here, and yeah, I'm convinced. 1950 all had more or less the same mass production, massive goods available. And today, I mean, the quote of Apple says it quite right. Think different. We are individual. We adapt things. We express ourselves. We use things temporarily, and everything is tailor-made. So that's the family of today. It's not that this was the family of the 50s. A good living standard, good enough for everybody. And here we are living all our own life. But actually, it's not so. We are not so different. You know, it's just design makes us think we are the only ones, but all have these Dyson cleaners, these Lego toys, Apple computers, etc. But marketing makes us think that everything is very, very individual, and this leads to a massive consumption at the far end. And it leads also to that, to a global stream of goods and materials, because it's not as probably they thought that the United States is producing for the American society. At the far end, production goes always to the place where it's most efficient and most and cheap. So it doesn't neither consider environment or social or labor and as well as fair trade. That means if you look at an item, can be what it was, what you think, it travels around the world. It's produced somewhere, it's then shipped to somewhere, then marketed somewhere, etc. And here I have an example which I think it's very interesting for those who do fashion. That's the stream of clothes. It's just one example. Number one is Kazakhstan, where the cotton comes from. Then it goes to Turkey, then it goes to China, then it goes to Poland, then it goes to Bangladesh, to China again, to Belgium, Germany, and then it ends in Africa. So that means my T-shirt has traveled much more than I have traveled as a person. And I think we have to consider this as designers. Is this really necessary that we design things that starts here, travel all around the world, also within the world, and then come back somewhere where we, let's say, forget the stuff we have used. And we have to say this is for like a €5 or probably 40 Hong Kong dollar T-shirt. It travels all around the world before it's garbage and it goes out of our view. And this is the reason why we say circularity must be a strategy for sustainable transformation. And actually, it should start, or it should consider this here, these three words: efficient, consistent, or sufficient. And this means that's the first part, more economical. So I try to illustrate this with mobility. Equal use with less energy and material. So instead having a big car, having a small car. That's more efficient. That needs less energy, less material. Okay. Then we have consistent. Do something different. Renewable energies and reusable materials. That means go from a petrol car to an electric car. So it's the same car, but with different sources. But the best would be this: sufficient. Less use, less material, less possession. Go from the car to the bicycle, if it's possible. But these are like the stages: efficient, consistent, and sufficient. But what the industry is doing is actually this so-called rebound effect. I have here the former Volkswagen Beetle from the 50s and his like younger brother, the other Beetle. And if you compare the figures, it's very interesting. They use more or less the same petrol per kilometer. So it's not more efficient. Where does the efficiency go? The efficiency goes to the speed, the force, how much you can you have in the car. So what does it transport? So efficiency is not less. Efficiency is less but better, but more. And so that's ridiculous, you know, that's so-called rebound effect. We make everything more efficient, but then we use it for other purposes. Another example is also interesting, which is reducing. Reducing the number of objects we possess or provides us service. So these are items for, let's say, from the 80s and 90s or 70s, and this was reduced to that. So one item like has all the functions other products have. So that's reduction. We reduce it, and we have the same functions in one piece as we had before in like 5 or 6 products. Another point is we were referring to that lady which are looking in the window dressing and said, "Do I need this really?" That's the same question we should ask. We as designers often design things for owning it. I buy these shoes. I buy this car. That's my car. And we should consider that. Who owns it? Who uses it? Who maintains it? And what kind of services are provided around this object? Because we have a lot of objects we bought and we probably never use it or seldom use it. And here the question comes, does it make sense in our society to produce so many products, but are often so seldom? For example, a drill. I don't know who has a drill at home, but a private drill is bought, it's quite expensive, is over all years, it's used 11 minutes. So that means we buy this machine and we use it in average 11 minutes. But it's built to last 2,000 hours. So now the question is this the right or the wrong product for a private user? So do we not better share a drill machine, cooking items, whatever it might be? Think about how often you use something, and what energy goes in the production of this drill. A drill might be one, but we as designer should look at the scale, because scale is that what matters. If we improve the design of a small shop, of a small business, that's fine. That's also okay for learning. But at the far end, those giants, those are those who are ruling the world. The big companies, thousands of employees, and these are those who are making the most pollution in our society. So working for these is for doing sustainable projects for these is much more important than working for these. This is okay, but this is not a problem in our society, and also when it comes to sustainability. But working with and for IKEA, that's really the crucial point, because if these are changing their policy, then you have something reached. And from this comes also the responsibility of design. A badly product or service creates more damage at every stage of its existence. By production, by distribution, by use, by also the disposal. So from that point, you may ask, what can I improve on all these stages? And now I switch a bit to examples. I could show you thousands of examples, but I try to do a bit between artists and designers. So when it comes to sustainability, what probably are the tasks for an artist? He should making the society aware of the necessities of a sustainable life and culture. They can be provocateurs, they can be activists, they can also imagine future. While designers are more applied, they're developing smart solutions for transformation with the economy, the industry, and the society. But both, I think both are highly relevant for the transformation and for new 5 minutes? Okay. I try to go a bit faster. So this book, at least, was very influencing for me, High Tech. They propose to use industrial goods for living space. And the good thing is they are already used, but they are also approached a new design. So this glass table with wheels. Another designer I appreciate, I don't think he made it because of sustainability, but Ron Arad used a lot of used objects, like the rover chair, a car chair, to put it out from old cars, or even the very well simple made temperate chair in the 80s. But it can be also new, lesser and smaller, using fewer resources. Just in Switzerland, they introduced electric car, which is very, very small. It's for inner city mobility, not fast, not strong, really only for 2 persons, which you can travel around. It's not the same as a big car. Or that's more an aesthetic approach. How can you do with less material more? Yesterday we had a discussion about the coffee capsules. And we know that espresso is doing that. And recently, Swiss Research did a coffee capsule without any cover. So that's just purely coffee, no packaging around it. And this is the coffee machine, and it produces also very well smelling coffee. Then we have probably more provocative designs. So how can you play around with nature and fashion? This is porcelain. This is a new sneaker. This is a bag. So these are all trying out to have another view of our items. So go away from the very traditional view. Yes, and finally, art and nature. That's at least what I think it's very strong. Richard Long, which is doing land art with stones and simple grass. So here we see the beauty of earth material, stones and grass, or others which are probably more provocative. Olafur Eliasson, which did a landscape in a museum. But we can have also a more, a more simple way, less material, more fun and creativity with already existing objects. So we see here a plastic bag, a shopping bag, which gives a lamp. We see a packaging of yeah, Taschentuch, yeah, exactly, which is a cover for iPhone, or here this toilet roll. So go, be creative. And finally, in a nutshell, for a circular economy, check your impact, consider the production, innovation. That's important for designers. Innovation for the sake of innovation is no innovation. So it must make sense. Circular and safe material, use of that, reduce the resources, moving from products to service, less products but more services, design products that last, and modular design makes upgradability and easy repair. And finally, we come to the role of the education institution. We need a new perspective for the design education for a sustainable future. Understand the principle and basics, economy, society, ecology, and nature. We have to develop new aesthetics of sustainable and social design and architecture. Interdisciplinarity is highly relevant. Co-creation lead to better results as if you do it just alone. Integrate aspects of reuse, sharing, recycle, and repair. Consider your production, consumption, the stream of resources and finances. And finally, creativity and innovation are still our core competencies here. Yes, and that's the end. And thank you for attention. And what I like to bring to you is that we should care about that. Otherwise, we look in 20 years like that. That's what we do. Thank you.
Michael, thank you so much for your inspiring presentation. I guess some of our audience may have questions for you. May I invite you all to join our kickoff ceremony and our next master lecture that will be held at 4 p.m. in our lecture theater A001. And then at that time, you can join our discussion with our honorable guest speaker, Mr. Wong Kam Shing, the former Secretary for the Environment of HKSAR. And then we will have a panel discussion among our Swiss experts and our Hong Kong experts. Let's join us later on, 30 minutes later. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you. Maybe we take a quick question. Do you have any questions? Please raise your hands up. Okay.
Hello, my name is Mia Münster. Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. Can you hear me? A bit closer? Oh, okay. Thanks a lot for a very interesting presentation. I think you framed the problem very well. Do you have any advice for designers on how to solve this practically? Do you have any advice? I don't know, some guidelines or something that we can do in our everyday work as designers or as design teachers?
That sustainability becomes a value or a core topic of your projects with the students. So look at every project in terms of what could be a sustainable solution in your project. May it be material, may it be production, distribution. So that's the first thing that that you address sustainability. But students should understand what sustainability is. So you have to give them the basics of that. Because otherwise, and that's the other problem of designer, it ends in the so-called greenwashing. And in my next lecture, I will show you some examples which are really bad. Because if I think I paint this wall green, it's sustainably not better. But or let's say, not good educated designers think I put a little bit grass on it and then it's sustainable. But nothing to do with sustainability. Yeah. Okay, but you are right. Look at your curricula and try to identify where can I integrate sustainability. It must be not the whole program of sustainability, but touch that. And the higher the program is, the more complex it could be. Okay.
Michael again, and it comes to the end of this lecture, and see you at 4 p.m. Thank you. Bye-bye.